So I'm an associate professor of theater at Utah Valley University. And when the pandemic hit and all the theaters were shutting down, and we really had no idea what was going to happen, I was watching what a lot of the theaters were doing, and a lot of them were pivoting to some sort of digital storytelling, whether that was opening their archives of film performances or creating some sort of like Zoom or whatever theater. But it became very clear to me that digital storytelling skills was going to be something that was going to be really important for theater people going forward, and it's something that I wanted to make sure that my students learn. So I wrote a grant to do a 2-year web series, and so last year we did An Open Letter to Isabella Beck, and then this year we did Backstage Bernie. And I really wanted to have a story that focused on theater itself, that was kind of highlighting all the amazing different ways that people can tell stories in the theater. And so last year, with the writing team, I came to them and I was like, okay, we're going to write a story about a middle-aged girl who wants to be a playwright. Go. And this year I was like, okay, we're going to write a story about a girl in the theater who's not a playwright, because we did that last year. Go. And so we all kind of worked together in terms of figuring out, well, what do we want her to be, and what would be a story that we would be interested in telling. And a lot of the writers in the room had started their careers elsewhere and then had found writing along the way. And so that idea of someone who, and a lot of us had started as actors. And so this idea of starting as an actor, but then finding a different passion or a different interest, or even just something else that you were really good at, was a story that we all resonated with.
I think it was really good. I'm not usually a team player, so I think it really gave me good experience to know how to work with others and collaborate and learn from each other. I think that was what I learned the most, is that everyone has different ideas and we can learn from that by helping each other out, and we can grow each other's ideas and bounce off each other.
It was awesome collaborating with other writers. You learned that sometimes your ideas aren't the best, and that you have a team that you can fall back on, and you can pick the ideas that are best for the story.
I love working in a writer's room. Collaboration is something that, for me, is one of the joys of creating any sort of story. And to be able to be in a room and to bounce ideas off of each other, and like I'll throw something in the pot and then someone will say, hey, well, what about this? And then they'll build off of it, and then someone else will throw something, and then I'll have something else. And all of a sudden you've reached something that none of us could have individually created on our own, but worked really well for the story.
I think the hardest part was I was having a creative block right when we were writing the episodes, so kind of just like pushing past that and trying to like find inspiration through other things.
Making decisions. Sometimes you have to write part of an episode where the team hadn't discussed what was going to be, what the specific part of that episode was going to be. So making decisions is nerve-wracking when you don't know how people are going to like it or not like it.
Um, so we met weekly as a writing team, and we would sit, and at the beginning we were just talking about different ideas, and we kind of outlined it, and then the whole story, and then we got to the point where we were outlining different episodes, and then we got to the point where we're individually writing. And I actually love all the phases. There's something magical about each of the phases, to sit and be like, all right, like what are some obstacles that she could encounter, and who's going to be our antagonist, and to really just realize we have full control over this story and what is going to happen to this girl, and to kind of sit and flesh it out with the other writers was really delightful. But I'm also a writer, and I love just sitting in front of my screen and talking the lines out loud and trying to figure out like how to take this synopsis that we had created as a writing team and flesh it out into a fully fledged episode.
Collaboration is definitely my favorite part. It's my favorite part of theater in general, is getting to work with other people and create something that can appeal to lots of different people.
I think I love how it takes you away for just a moment and you get to experience something different that maybe you wouldn't see in your own life, or even if you do see it, then it's relatable. Either way, I think that's why it's magic to me.
I wanted to be an actor.
And what drew you from acting to writing?
Part of it was vanity and pride. I really wanted to be like the ingenue and the lead. And I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm never getting cast as the ingenue or the lead. And that was a kind of a hard lesson as a young actor. Like, I started acting when I was like 8. And so I actually left. Like, I came to college and I was a declared history major, and after my first semester listened to the siren call of the theater department and came back. But I didn't know what I was going to do because I could feel that acting wasn't right, but I didn't know what was. So I just started taking a bunch of different classes, and I actually started doing something called dramaturgy, which works a lot with writers and directors in kind of the research and development. And that's where I really fell in love with telling news stories, and eventually got brave enough to be a writer because I was scared of it for a while.
Dream job. I wanted to be an actress first. That was my dream in theater. And then it kind of switched back to writing. I took a script writing class from Janine, and it changed everything for me. I switched to be a writer.
I think the interactions between Finley and Bernie in episode 2 are my favorite, where Bernie's yelling at Finley to get out of my light, or Finley's telling the world about Bernie dancing and doing scenes from Chaotic Mountain in their mom or their mom's clothes or something like that. It was fun.
I think I just liked, probably in episode 3, trying to make it seem as natural as possible between Sam and Bernie. It's comedic or comedy is not very easy for me. I'm usually more of a drama person, so just trying to make that, like, playing off each other, two characters just working together to make something kind of silly but still, like, meaningful.
One was episode 7, when Bernie is trying to explain to Sam why costume design matters. When the first draft that I wrote of that, it was kind of Sam coming in and being like, this is what visual identity is, and she's the one that's quoting Tan from Queer Eye, and she was kind of teaching Bernie, and I wrote it and I was like, no, like, Bernie needs to be more in control of this. It needs to be her own discovery. And so I scratched my first draft and I rewrote it. And it was really kind of fun to try and get into Bernie's head. Because I do think personally in another life I will be a costume designer because I love costume design. But I'm not a costume designer, but to try and figure out and to get into her head was something that was really interesting. And then I also loved Bernie's kind of dark night of the soul moment in episode 11, where she's recounting like her first experience going to the theater with her family, which I loosely based off of one of my own young experiences going to the theater, and really kind of trying to figure out, like, what is it about theater that draws people in? What makes them fall so much in love with it that they can go to a show and be like, I want to do this with my life, which is certainly an experience that I've had more than once. But to try and communicate that in a moment where she was really kind of like wrestling with her future and her decisions was something that I really enjoyed.